Once again, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to another session of Power Lunch. And as you know, that we record these calls and place our recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you are not okay with it, you may want to drop off now. And this call is joined by our Microsoft team members as well as from our customers and partners. So with that, we will move on with our topic of discussion, which is it's um how you can use Service Principal or MSI to invoke ADO REST API. That's a very simple topic. And the thing is, we have already talked about in a past session about Azure um, DevOps and how you can use Azure. Now you can use Service Principal and or managed identity to call ADO. Before it was just PAT, and that was a challenge because PAT are tied to a user, but now you can take advantage of it. So we're gonna just do a quick lap around it, just 1 minute. So what we have is we have service principals and managed identity. They are both identity constructs. Service principals are created in Azure Entra ID, and they are basically they can be attached to an application. So mostly if you're doing a console application that needs to call something, some service or something, you may want to use a service principal for that. But on the other hand, if you have an Azure service like app service or function that needs to call another entity, then it may be a good idea to create a user managed identity or system managed identity. Okay, so both of these options are um, good. But the good thing is that now it is supported by Azure DevOps. This is still in public preview, and so I was doing kind of a POC of uh, for an application where we need to kind of generate a report for a customer, and was and I have to call some ADO REST API. And I thought it will be good to share with the team, like how you can, with the audience, how you can do it using service principal and managed identity. I mean, yes, we can do it with bad tokens, but the idea is how you can do it with service principal and or managed identity. And so we're gonna see both of these things. Okay. And so let's just quickly move on. And most of the time you're going to spend is in the demo. So first of all, here is the um, kind of a step. So first, and we will walk through it as well. You will want to create a service principal or managed identity depending on what you're doing. Possibly, if you have a console application, as I said before, you may want to create a service principal. It's a console application running on your machine, so that probably a good idea for a service principal to be used by that. Okay. And second thing is if you want to do a um, let's say Azure app service or a function, then you may want to take advantage of managed identity. Got it? So moving forward, once you have done that, you need to give it the access to the appropriate organization and then appropriate project. Once that is done, then you need to give it appropriate access, of course. And then what you need to do is one simple thing, which is getting the token using the DevOps resource ID. And that resource ID is unique. It is not specific to your tenant or anything. It is unique. I've just mentioned it in step number 6. And this is simple code. This is C# code, but you can get an idea. I mean, same code will be similar code will be used for Python or Java, or if you are using CLI, there are example in the documentation there, how you can use CLI to do that. Once you get that token, then you need to call the REST API Azure DevOps REST API to do exactly that. Okay, so you just use that as a bearer token, and you should be able to call that. Okay, and now we're going to see that in action. So most of the time in this session we will spend on the demo. Okay, so let's quickly. I think somebody has their camera on, so just want to give them a heads up. Okay, so let's quickly move on. So first of all, let me show you what I have. So what I have is a very simple Azure DevOps organization. And what I wanted to do is I have some queries, which is getting some task for a particular sprint. And I want to generate a report from those tasks. I mean, this was a requirement for the customer. They want to generate kind of an HTML report. They don't want to use Power BI and, long story short. So they don't want to give direct access to Azure DevOps to other people. And they just want to say, hey, we want to just get a simple report. And that was one way of doing it using and we are going to do it using the Azure DevOps REST API. So first of all, this is the actual query. As you can see, this is an Azure DevOps organization. This is the name of the organization, NZAPLM demo. And then uh, um, the name of the project is APL demo. As you can see in the query, this is the query ID. So just keep that in mind. And now, what first we're gonna go step by step. We are going to create a service principal. So let's go into Azure AD. I hope everybody can see my screen. Let me increase the font size a little bit. So I am going to create a service principal, a new app registration. I'm gonna name it to very creative, and I'm going to register that. So, okay. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be doing a console application. By the way, we will see a web application as well, but let's quickly do a console application. So with that, we have created an app registration. It creates a service principal behind the scene. We need to do one more thing. We need to create a secret with it. So first of all, let's make a note of the application ID. So what we're going to do, we're just copy that application ID and I'm going to paste it in the notepad. Okay. Second thing, let's create a secret. Okay. So for creating a secret, we're going to click here and okay. And that's it. So the secret has been created. And what we're going to do is we're going to, because we only see this value one time, so we're going to copy the value and we are going to paste it here. One last thing we need is the tenant ID for this Azure Active Directory. And we are going to copy the tenant ID from here. Okay, and we are going to save this as well. So now we have everything that we need. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go in and give this identity access to our project. Okay, so let's do that. So let's copy this ID so we don't. And we're going to go in here. Sorry, this is my project. So I'm gonna go on to the, first of all, organization, because that's where you have the ability to add users. I'm gonna go into organizational settings. Okay. So we go into users. Give it a second to come up. And let's click on add users. Let's type in the name. It picks up, it's a service principal. And then we are going to use this project APL demo, and we are going to give only the readers because we just are querying some data. Let's save it. We are all set from the authentication point of view. So just think of it. We created a service principal. We created a secret with it so we can use it in our code for authentication. And then we added that service principal into our Azure DevOps organization, give it appropriate access into the project. Okay. Once we are done with that, let's go and take a look for a second on our queries. So we go into this um, organization, go into this project, and it's coming up slowly. So yeah, let's look at the queries. There should be one query here that we have been doing, and let's take a look at that. Okay, this is my query. And this query just doesn't do anything, just list all the tasks. At this moment, we are not hung up on like all the details. We just want to see how we can get this information through the API. Okay. And so let's go into the console app. And this is my console app. As you can see here, this is all the data I need to be populating. But let's first go ahead. Question. Okay. So this is we will come back and populate this data, but just first of all, I mean, this is all boilerplate C# identity code. Just keep in mind this code will be different if you are coding in a different language like Python, but I want you to just get an idea of it. Okay. First part is getting the token. This is the most important piece. So what you're doing is you are using this particular resource ID, which is ADO client ID for Azure DevOps. And using that scope, we are getting a token. Once we get the token, then we are calling the API, and we are calling two APIs. Okay. First, we are setting the HTTP client. We are setting the bearer token. Remember, on the line 49, we get the token, and I'm going to put a breakpoint so we can see as we go through it. And on line number 58, we are using this token to call the API. Okay. Once we call we're assigning the header, sorry. And then on line 61, we are calling the first API, which is giving us all the IDs, and then we are looping through. And the code logic, you can take a look at it. It's not important at this point. Basically, we're just calling this API using that key to call the API, and then we are looping through it to build the HTML. That's all there is to it. So let's actually just quickly populate this information. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and go back at the top and first put a client ID. This is the client ID, and this is the secret. Then the third thing is the tenant ID. We populate the tenant ID here. Organization name. So let's get the organization name. That's the organization name. Okay. And then we need the name of the project. That's the name of the project, if you may remember, and the query ID. That's the query ID. Okay. Now we have populated all the information here. So let's turn it on and let's see, how we get the token and everything from there. Any question in the meantime? Okay, so the debugging has started. Okay, so the first breakpoint, it's going to acquire the token. So I'm going to move to the next line and let's continue. So so what we can do is we can take a look at the token. This is the token, and let's do a text visualizer. So we got the token, and what we can do is this is basically once you have the token, then you can start making calls. So we go back here, and what we can do, we can open t.ms and take a look at that token as well. Let's paste this token here. This is the decoded token. As you can see, this is, it provides all the information, what we are trying to call resource ID. This is this is the audience. So this is the resource ID or client ID of the Azure DevOps. This is our enter ID. Okay, so that's that. And once we have that information, then we can start calling the API. So this is, we are setting the header, and let's continue. Okay, and this is the um, this is the JSON that we have received. All the IDs have been received, and we can continue building the HTML. And let's continue on. Okay, so now let's go to the folder. This is the folder, and this is the file that we have been generated. And let me just bring that file here so everybody can see it. Look at this. So this is the HTML that's been generated. So, I mean, the point is not like, how the HTML looks, or point is how simply we just use the service principal from a command line app to generate it. So that's one way of doing it. And by the way, I have this code in the GitHub, so you can access this code. I have the links in the presentation. So once you have the presentation, in the resources section, you should have links to access this code. So that's that. So now let's come to the web app. Okay. So I have, for that, what I have done is I have created a HTML, a Azure app service. Let me just refresh it. Give it a second. Whenever there is a demo, things tend to slow down. So come on, what's going on? Okay, in any case, this is a simple web service where I have deployed, where I have created a managed identity. And let's take a look at that managed identity, and then we will take a look at this app. So any case, just remember the name of this app, and let's go into our project here. And as you can see here, I have given this managed identity access. So it manages access. It has basic level access to these two projects as project contributors. Okay, that's that. So once I've given access, let's go back to the application. Let's look at the code first. Let me just show you the code and how that code is slightly different from the code that I have. I mean, same three parts of information we still need: organization name, project name, and query ID. And by the way, just keep in mind, it's the query ID is specific and project name is specific to the project I'm using. If you're calling different APIs, you may need other information as well. But one thing you may notice, I don't need the client ID as well as a secret, because it's a managed identity. With managed identity, we don't need any type of secret, because look, here is how I am calling the, uh, I'm just creating a new default credential, because through default credential, what it's going to do is it's going to get the credential of through the app's managed identity. Since I'm going to be running this code in the app service, I have assigned a managed identity to the app service. So it's going to get that identity. It's going to get that context. Okay. So there is no need to create a new identity. Over there, we have to create like, you know, uh, use that service principal because we needed an identity. We cannot use a managed identity with an on-prem console app, but with app service, we can. And once we have that managed identity, what we are doing is we are just getting the token the same way. But now credential.get token is sync, we get the token, and the rest of the stuff is pretty much the same. Got it? So managed identity of the application, of the app service. And let me, hopefully that app service is back. So I can show you the identity here. So as you can see, I have turned on the managed identity. This is the principal, and you will not see this in the code here, because what we are doing is we are just using saying, hey, where the code is running, get the managed identity and go from there. And that's all there is to it. So let's populate this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste some code from here. And let's put in here. Okay. So this code, now we have updated the information. We need the org name, project name, query ID, no mention of any secret or any client ID because we are using the managed identity. If you are using a user managed identity, then you will need the client ID. If you are using the system managed identity, that you don't need a client ID. Basically, you are just using that as such. Okay. So what I have done is I have deployed this code already. So let's take a look. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into overview and we are going to say browse the app. So at this moment, what it's going to do is it's going to run the app, and we should be able to see the HTML. So it's the same code that is generating the querying the data from uh, calling that query and displaying the data in the form of a table. That's all. Look, this is title, description, number of item 4, blah, blah. So that's all there is to it. So just want to do a quick recap. As you know, that now Azure DevOps supports managed identity as well as service principal to access itself. And you can call you can call Azure ADO, Azure DevOps REST API with both using the service principal as well as managed identity. And in this particular demo, we saw basically it has two parts. The first part, what we showed a very simple console application that is calling a query in a project in Azure DevOps using the APIs, and it is using a service principal to do that. So we create a service principal, give it access to Azure DevOps project, and then create a secret with it on the service principal, and then get the token using the fixed ID, client ID of the Azure DevOps, and then use that token to call Azure DevOps APIs, REST APIs. Got it? In the second one, what we did, we have a web app. We assigned a managed identity to the web app, use that, and then give that managed identity access in the Azure DevOps organization and the project. And then we made the calls through that. Okay, so two different ways, but that's the whole purpose to show that you can now call Azure ADO REST APIs, just like you can access ADO through service principal and managed identity. So any questions, folks?
Maybe there is a question on the chat. I'm actually not clear on the question. Do these IDs change for different environments like dev, staging, prod?
That's on you. That's a good question. That's on you. Basically, um, if you want, I mean, you will probably have different IDs. So if you're using service principal, that ID will change, and you may be calling, depending on what your DevOps is different for uh, production and development. So that may be different. So yeah, I mean, different environment may have different IDs. Once again, that depends on your organization. But if you're asking that your service principal will change automatically, no, it will not. Same with the managed identity. Managed identity is tied with system managed identity is tied with the resource. Once the resource is gone, the managed identity is gone. On the other hand, user managed identity is tied with is not tied with any system or resource. You create it and then you attach it to different resources. Okay. I hope I addressed the question.
If you have follow up on that, please go ahead with the question. Nothing else on the chat, maybe so far.
Okay. So there was. Why aren't you going into demo 02? What is, sorry, please, if you want to unmute, ask the question. Okay, I think that addresses the question. Okay, anything else, folks? We have 2 more minutes.
On the demo, I believe Naveed, you were showing initially demo 1, but then you queried demo 2, I believe, because you had the tasks populated in demo 2.
Oh, okay, maybe. Sorry.
Hey, Naveed, I just wrote few comments. Moon is here. So so I think this is excellent. Actually, in custom applications, in my experience, I did it a while ago, but I think another customer was asking the same where, um, like report a bug from within the application or give visibility to the list of bugs to the end user, so we can build simple functionality while they don't need to learn ADO. So you just put little piece of code to give them the visibility into ADO. So I think it's perfect. Thank you so much.
And the thing is, we were able to do that before, but with bad tokens and bad tokens. But now you have a very standard way using managed identity and service principal. So that makes it kind of very straightforward, very clean. Because with bad
And
token, you
very
have
secure, yeah. Very
yeah,
clean and very
absolutely,
secure. Like
absolutely,
nobody,
yes,
no need, even somebody get access to the code, they can't get in.
yeah. I mean, look at the code on the app service. Yeah, if you have the code, even you have the project, you still can access it if you don't have the managed identity. And the managed identity is tied to the app service, so there's no way you can take it with you. Yeah. Any other question, folks? Thank you very much, and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch, and have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you.
Great session, Naveed. Thank you.